A racist lawyer kicks out a black client, realizes after that he's the judge's son. Eli Carter stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie for what felt like the 100th time. Today was significant. His first real meeting with a lawyer, Travis Hargrove, who had a reputation for being one of the best in the business. Eli had worked hard to reach this point, graduating from law school against all odds, and now he was on the brink of fighting for his rights. The stakes were high. After being wrongfully terminated from his job, he needed a solid legal representation. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the butterflies in his stomach. His father, Judge Carter, had always emphasized the importance of standing up for oneself, especially in a world that often didn't play fair. Eli straightened his posture, reinforced by that thought, and stepped out of the small apartment he shared with his younger sister, Maya. As he walked down the busy streets of downtown, the hustle and bustle of the city surrounded him. People rushed past, immersed in their own worlds, while the sounds of traffic filled the air. Eli felt a sense of determination swell within him. He was ready to make his case, to prove that he deserved justice. Arriving at the imposing glass building that housed Hargrove's law firm, Eli paused to take it all in. The lobby was lavish, adorned with modern art and polished marble floors. He felt a wave of anxiety wash over him as he approached the receptionist, who barely looked up from her screen. "Mr. Hargrove will see you shortly," she said, her voice monotone. "Thank you," Eli replied, forcing a smile as he glanced nervously at the awards lining the walls. Each plaque and framed certificate solidified the weight of the moment. He was about to meet someone powerful, but he hoped that his determination would shine through. After a few minutes, the receptionist gestured for him to enter. Eli pushed the door open, stepping into a spacious office filled with dark wood furniture and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Travis Hargrove sat behind a massive desk, his posture relaxed yet commanding. "Eli Carter," Travis said, looking him over with a mix of curiosity and disdain. "What brings you to my office?" Eli felt a lump in his throat but forced himself to speak clearly. "I'm here to discuss my wrongful termination case. I believe I was fired unfairly due to my race, and I have evidence to support my claims." Travis leaned back in his chair, crossing his arm. "And what makes you think I would consider taking on your case?" Eli's heart sank at the dismissive tone. "I thought you were known for helping people who've been wronged." Travis chuckled, a harsh sound that echoed in the otherwise quiet room. "Helping people, yes, but only when it makes sense. You're just a kid fresh out of law school. You really think you can walk in here and demand representation?" Eli's face grew hot with embarrassment. "I graduated at the top of my class. I know the law and my rights. I just need someone to help me present my case." "Your case?" Travis leaned forward, his expression shifting from mockery to curiosity. "Let me guess. You think the world owes you something because you faced some hardship?" "No, I don't think that at all," Eli said, feeling a surge of anger. "I'm here to fight for what's right. I deserve to be heard." Travis smirked, clearly enjoying the banter. "Heard? You think people want to hear your sob story? This is a business, Eli. If you can't prove you have a legitimate case, then you're wasting my time." Eli clenched his fists, feeling the weight of the lawyer's condescension. "I have documents, emails, and witnesses who can back me up. I was wrongfully terminated, and I'm not going to let you or anyone else dismiss my experience." "Wrongfully terminated?" Travis repeated, his tone dripping with skepticism. "You think that just because you have a few papers you can make a case? You have to do better than that." Eli felt a surge of frustration. "This isn't just about me, it's about the systemic racism that exists in workplaces like mine. People like you—" "People like me?" Travis interrupted, his voice rising. "What do you mean by that?" Eli took a deep breath, trying to remain composed. "People in positions of power need to recognize the impact of their actions. You're perpetuating a cycle of discrimination." Travis leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "You need to learn your place, kid. You don't get to come in here and lecture me about discrimination." "Why not? I'm the one who experienced it," Eli replied, his voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. "You're the one who needs to listen." Travis's expression hardened, and he waved a dismissive hand. "I don't have time for this. You should leave before I call security." The words struck Eli like a blow. He had come seeking help, only to be met with disdain and prejudice. "You can't just throw me out. I deserve to be treated with respect. Respect? Travis laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. You think you deserve respect because you graduated from law school? You haven't earned anything in my book. Eli's face burned with humiliation. He had prepared for this meeting, but he hadn't anticipated outright racism. With a final glance at Travis, he turned on his heel and walked out of the office, his heart heavy with defeat. Outside, Eli leaned against the cold brick wall of the building, breathing deeply to calm himself. He felt a mixture of anger and frustration, the sting of Travis's words echoing in his mind. He had fought hard to get to this point, and now it felt like everything was slipping away. After a moment of reflection, Eli clenched his fists. He recalled his father's advice about standing up against injustice, about never letting anyone diminish his worth. He had a choice, to walk away defeated or to confront the prejudice head-on. Taking a deep breath, Eli straightened his shoulders and headed back inside the office. He wouldn't let Travis's racism go unchallenged. As he pushed open the door again, Travis looked up in surprise, a smirk faltering as he recognized Eli. "Back for more?" he sneered. "Actually, I'm here to set the record straight," Eli said, his voice steady. "You don't get to dismiss me or my case based on your prejudices." Travis raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "And what do you think you can do about it?" "I'm the son of Judge Carter," Eli declared, the words hanging in the air like a challenge. "You've just insulted someone who has the power to ruin your career." For a moment, Travis's expression shifted from arrogance to disbelief. "You can't be serious," he said, his bravado faltering. "Oh, I'm very serious," Eli replied, his heart racing. "You think you can treat people like this and get away with it? Not anymore." Travis's demeanor changed, the confidence draining from his face. "Listen, Eli, I was just—" "No," Eli interrupted, stepping forward. "You don't get to make excuses. Your racism has consequences, and I'm not going to let you walk away from this." Travis opened his mouth to protest, but Eli could see the fear creeping into his eyes. "What do you think will happen if I tell my father about this? He's been waiting for an excuse to bring down unethical lawyers like you." Realization dawned on Travis, and he shifted in his seat, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Let's not make this a bigger issue than it needs to be," he said, his tone shifting to a desperate plea. "It's already a big issue, Travis," Eli said, his voice firm. "You've already made it personal. I'm here to fight for my rights, and anyone who thinks they can treat me or others like this needs to be held accountable." Travis sat back, his expression conflicted. "You think you can just come in here and threaten me?" "I'm not threatening you," Eli clarified. "I'm giving you a chance to do better. I'm not afraid of you or your office. But know this, I will not be silenced." The tension in the room thickened as Eli's words hung in the air. Travis's bravado had crumbled, and for the first time, Eli felt a flicker of hope. He had stepped out of the shadow of fear and into a position of power, ready to reclaim his narrative. Travis Hargrove stared at Eli, his expression shifting from disbelief to annoyance, the tension in the air palpable. Eli could feel the weight of his own heartbeat, the adrenaline coursing through him as he stood his ground. He had come here seeking justice, and now he was ready to fight for it. "What do you think you can achieve with these threats?" Travis asked, trying to regain some semblance of control over the situation. "You're just a kid with no real-world experience. You think your father's name will save you?" Eli took a step closer, refusing to let Travis intimidate him. "This isn't just about my father's name," he replied, his voice steady. "This is about holding people accountable for their actions. You think you can bully your way through life without facing consequences? That's not how it works." Travis shifted uneasily in his chair, clearly taken aback by Eli's confidence. "You're making a mistake if you think you can just waltz in here and demand respect. You have no idea how this world works." Eli felt the anger rise within him, but he tempered it with resolve. "And you have no idea about me. I've worked hard to get where I am. I won't allow you to dismiss my experiences or my case just because you think you're better than me." Travis's eyes narrowed, and for a moment Eli saw a flicker of vulnerability. "You think you're the first person to come in here with a sob story? I've heard it all before. If you want a lawyer, you need to earn my attention." "Earn your attention?" Eli echoed, incredulous. "What do I have to do? Jump through hoops while you belittle me? Your attitude is exactly what's wrong with this profession." Travis's facade cracked further, revealing frustration beneath his arrogance. "You think you understand the law? You think you can take on a corporate giant like your former employer? You're in over your head. Eli took a deep breath, reminding himself of his purpose. I'm not afraid of corporations or lawyers like you. What I'm afraid of is letting people like you continue to operate unchecked. I won't let you intimidate me. Intimidation? That's rich coming from someone who just walked in here with nothing but empty words. Travis shot back, his voice rising. You're wasting my time. Eli's patience began to wear thin, but he knew he had to keep his cool. I'm not here to waste your time. I'm here to demand accountability. If you don't want to represent me, fine. But that doesn't mean I won't expose you for who you really are. With that, Eli turned on his heel and walked toward the door. He could feel Travis's eyes burning into his back, the tension in the room thick and suffocating. Just as he reached for the doorknob, he heard Travis's voice call out behind him. Wait! Eli paused, contemplating whether to turn around. He didn't want to give Travis the satisfaction of thinking he could manipulate him. But he also knew this might be his only opportunity to truly make an impact. Fine, Eli said, turning slowly to face the lawyer again. What do you want? I'm not saying I'll take your case, Travis began, his tone more measured. But let's talk about it. You think you can convince me that your claims hold water? Eli crossed his arms, assessing Travis's sudden change in demeanor. I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm here to state the facts. If you can't see the value in my case, then you're not the right lawyer for me. Travis leaned back in his chair, a flicker of respect passing over his features. You have guts, I'll give you that. But guts won't win a legal battle. You need strategy. I know that, Eli replied, his voice firm, and I'm willing to fight for it. But I refuse to do it under the guidance of someone who thinks they can belittle me based on the color of my skin. The air hung heavy between them, both men standing firm in their beliefs. Eli felt a spark of hope. He had pushed back against a powerful figure, and it felt liberating. He was reclaiming his narrative, no longer willing to be the victim of someone else's prejudice. Travis sighed, his expression softening slightly. Look, I'll be honest. I don't often take cases like yours seriously. But if you have evidence and you're willing to fight, maybe there's something we can discuss. I'll show you my evidence, Eli said, determination surging through him. I have emails that prove I was targeted and witnesses willing to testify. This isn't a petty complaint. It's a legitimate case of discrimination. Fine, Travis said, his tone shifting to a more businesslike demeanor. Let's see what you have, but I warn you, if it's not enough, I won't waste my time. Eli nodded, feeling a mix of apprehension and excitement. This was his chance to not only fight for his rights, but to challenge the biases that plague the system. I'll gather everything and bring it back to you. Good, Travis replied, his tone more neutral now. I'll be here, but remember, if you're going to waste my time, I won't hesitate to kick you out again. As Eli left the office, he felt a rush of adrenaline. He had stood up to Travis and forced him to consider the case seriously. Although the lawyer was still condescending, Eli was determined to change that narrative. Over the next few days, Eli assembled all the evidence he could find. He gathered emails from his former employer, outlining the discriminatory practices he had faced, and reached out to former co-workers who could corroborate his account. He felt a renewed sense of purpose as he worked tirelessly to prepare his case. Finally, the day came for him to return to Travis's office. Eli dressed sharply, wearing a crisp suit that made him feel both confident and professional. As he walked through the bustling streets, he felt the weight of his mission on his shoulders. He was not just fighting for himself, he was fighting for others who had faced similar injustices. When Eli arrived at the law office, he took a moment to collect his thoughts before stepping inside. The receptionist nodded at him, and he made his way to Travis's office. He knocked on the door and entered, his heart pounding with anticipation. Back again, I see, what Travis said, looking up from a stack of papers. I've brought the evidence, Eli replied, placing a folder on the desk. You'll see that I'm not just talking. I have proof. Travis raised an eyebrow as he opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. Eli watched closely, noting the subtle changes in the lawyer's expression. For the first time, there was a flicker of interest in Travis's eyes. This is more comprehensive than I expected, Travis admitted, studying the emails and witness statements. You might have a case here. Not just a case, Eli corrected, his voice firm. This is about standing up against discrimination and holding people accountable for their actions. Travis nodded slowly, a thoughtful expression on his face. You're right, this is serious, but it's going to take a lot of work. Are you prepared for that? I'm ready, Eli replied, his tone resolute. I've come too far to back down now. All right, Travis said, his demeanor shifting. Let's get to work then. I'll help you, but you'll need to keep your emotions in check. This isn't going to be easy. Eli felt a surge of hope. He had taken a stand, and now he was on the path to reclaiming his narrative. It wouldn't be easy, but Eli was prepared to fight for what was right, both for himself and for others who had faced similar struggles. The following weeks were a whirlwind for Eli Carter. After his initial confrontation with Travis Hargrove, he found himself immersed in preparing for his case. The law office's atmosphere had shifted slightly. Travis was more receptive, albeit still condescending. Eli knew this was his chance to prove himself, but the stakes were high. Eli spent countless hours in the law office, poring over documents and strategizing with Travis. They reviewed the emails from Eli's former employer, which detailed the discrimination he had faced. Each piece of evidence he presented garnered a mix of skepticism and grudging respect from Travis. Eli felt the pressure of expectation, but he was determined to rise to the challenge. One afternoon, as they sat across from each other in the office, Eli laid out his plan. I think we should start by filing a formal complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC. It might bring more attention to my case and put pressure on my former employer. Travis leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. That's a solid idea, but it's also a lengthy process. Are you prepared for that? These things can take months, even years. I don't care how long it takes, Eli replied, his voice firm. I'm not going to back down just because it might be inconvenient. This is bigger than me. Travis studied Eli for a moment, and Eli could see the wheels turning in the lawyer's mind. You have conviction, I'll give you that. But conviction alone won't win a case. You need to be strategic. I understand that, Eli replied, feeling a mix of frustration and determination. But I also know that if I don't start fighting back now, nothing will change. All right, let's draft the complaint, Travis said, a hint of respect creeping into his tone. But remember, once we file, there's no going back. You're in this for the long haul. Eli nodded, feeling the weight of his decision settle over him. He was prepared to fight, to expose the systemic issues that plagued not just his former workplace, but countless others. They spent the rest of the afternoon drafting the complaint, Eli's heart racing as he put his experiences into words. As they wrapped up for the day, Travis looked at Eli, his expression shifting. You know, I didn't think you had it in you. Most people would have walked away after our first meeting. Most people don't know what it's like to be treated like less than human, Eli replied, his voice steady. I refuse to let that happen to me or anyone else. The next week, they filed the complaint with the EOC, and Eli felt a mixture of relief and anxiety wash over him. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face it head on. However, the peace was short-lived. Just days after filing, Eli received a call from a former coworker, Lisa, who had agreed to be a witness in his case. Her voice trembled as she spoke. Eli, I've been hearing things around the office. They're saying they're going to come after you for this. What do you mean? Eli asked, gripping the phone tightly. There are rumors that they're going to try to discredit you, Lisa explained. They're saying you're just trying to get back at them, that you're not a credible source. They know you filed the complaint, and they're not happy about it. Eli's stomach dropped. They can't do that. I have evidence. I have witnesses. I know, but they're powerful, Eli. They're going to use every trick in the book to silence you. You need to be careful, Lisa warned. I appreciate you looking out for me, Lisa, Eli said, trying to keep his voice steady. But I won't let them intimidate me. I can't back down now. After hanging up, Eli felt a surge of determination. He had expected pushback, but hearing it from a friend made it all the more real. He couldn't let fear dictate his actions. He reached for his notebook and began jotting down his thoughts, contemplating the next steps in his fight for justice. The following week, Eli and Travis met again to discuss their strategy. Travis had arranged a meeting with a local journalist who was interested in Eli's story. This could be a game changer for you, Travis said, flipping through the notes he had prepared. If we can get your story out there, it might help sway public opinion in your favor. Are you sure that's a good idea? Eli asked, his brow furrowed. What if my employer retaliates? They've already made it clear they want to discredit me. True, but going public can also put pressure on them, Travis countered. You have to think strategically. If they know you're not backing down, they might reconsider their approach. Eli took a deep breath, weighing the risks. I want to tell my story. I want people to understand what I've faced, but I also don't want to jeopardize my case. Travis leaned forward, his expression serious. You need to be prepared for the fallout. Once you speak out, there's no taking it back. But standing up for yourself might be the most powerful thing you can do. After some deliberation, Eli decided to move forward with the interview. He wanted to ensure that his voice was heard, that others knew there was a fight against the discrimination that had plagued his workplace. The day of the interview arrived, and Eli felt a mix of nerves and excitement. He arrived at the small studio, where the journalist Sarah greeted him warmly. Thanks for coming in, Eli. I've heard a bit about your story, and I think it's important that we share it. As they settled into their seats, Eli took a deep breath, ready to open up about his experiences. I appreciate the opportunity to speak out. I think it's crucial for people to understand the realities of discrimination in the workplace. Sarah nodded, her expression focused. Can you tell me about what happened at your former job? Eli shared his story, detailing the unfair treatment he had faced and the circumstances surrounding his termination. He described the emails and the conversations with his employer, feeling a sense of catharsis as he spoke. Each word was a step toward reclaiming his narrative. As the interview progressed, Eli felt a surge of empowerment. He was no longer just a victim, he was a voice for change. He spoke passionately about the need for accountability, describing the impact of racism on his life and the lives of others. After the interview concluded, Sarah smiled at him. Thank you for sharing your story, Boss Eli. It takes a lot of courage to speak out, especially when the odds feel stacked against you. Thank you for giving me the platform, Eli replied, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. I just want to make a difference, to show others that they don't have to suffer in silence. As Eli left the studio, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had taken a stand not just for himself, but for everyone who had faced discrimination. But as he stepped outside, a sense of foreboding settled in his stomach. He knew that the backlash from his employer would soon follow. Days passed and Eli's interview aired, garnering attention from the community and beyond. Support poured in from friends and strangers alike, but with it came a wave of negativity. Eli received messages from anonymous accounts, threatening him and calling him a troublemaker. One evening, as he sat at home reviewing the messages, Eli's phone rang. It was Lisa again. Her voice hurried and panicked. Eli, you need to be careful. I heard from someone that they're planning to retaliate. They might try to discredit you in a big way. What do you mean? Eli asked, a knot forming in his stomach. I don't know the details, but they're not going to let this go quietly. You need to prepare yourself for anything, Lisa warned. Eli felt the weight of her words settle over him. He had anticipated pushback, but the idea of retaliation made his heart race. He had to be vigilant, not only for himself, but for the message he was trying to convey. Thanks for the heads up, Lisa. I appreciate it, Eli said, trying to keep his voice steady, but I won't let them intimidate me. As he hung up the phone, Eli realized that the fight was just beginning. He had stood up to the powerful figures in his life, and now he had to be ready for whatever came next. With renewed determination, he began to strategize his next steps, knowing that he was not just fighting for himself, but for everyone who had faced the same struggles. Eli felt a mix of anxiety and determination as he prepared for the potential fallout from his recent interview. The words of his co-worker, Lisa, echoed in his mind, serving as a constant reminder that standing up for his rights came with risks. He spent the next few days gathering additional evidence and reaching out to others who had experienced discrimination in similar ways. Eli wanted to ensure that if his former employer attempted to discredit him, he would be ready to counter their attacks with irrefutable proof. As the days turned into a week, Eli noticed an uptick in the hostility directed toward him on social media. An anonymous account had sprung up, posting derogatory comments and attempts to undermine his credibility. Just another entitled kid trying to play the victim, one comment read. Eli felt the sting of those words, but he reminded himself of the purpose behind his fight. He was not just advocating for himself, but for others who felt powerless against systemic injustice. One afternoon, while sitting in his small apartment, Eli received a call from Travis. "Eli, we need to talk," the lawyer said, his tone serious. "About what?" Eli asked, his heart racing. "I just received word from your former employer. They're planning to launch a smear campaign against you," Travis replied. "They want to discredit your claims, and they're not going to hold back." Eli felt a cold chill run down his spine. "What do you mean by a smear campaign?" "They're likely going to reach out to your friends and colleagues, trying to paint you as a liar or someone who can't be trusted. They'll dig into your past, looking for anything they can use against you," Travis explained. "We need to be proactive." "What do you suggest?" Eli asked, anxiety creeping into his voice. "We need to gather more support and build a coalition of people who can vouch for your character and your experiences," Travis said. "If we can show that this isn't just a personal vendetta, it'll strengthen your case." Eli nodded, feeling a spark of hope. "I can reach out to those who have experienced similar things. I know a few people who might be willing to speak out." "Good. We need to prepare for whatever they throw at us," Travis said. "And remember, you have to stay focused. Don't let their tactics distract you from your goal." Taking Travis's advice to heart, Eli began reaching out to former colleagues and friends. He organized a small meeting at a local coffee shop, inviting anyone who had faced discrimination or who could support his cause. As the day approached, Eli felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Would others be willing to stand alongside him? On the day of the meeting, Eli arrived early, anxious to make a good impression. The cafe was bustling, and he found a quiet corner table where he could set up. As people began to trickle in, Eli felt a sense of camaraderie start to build. Each person who arrived carried their own stories of injustice, and Eli could see the fire in their eyes. When everyone was settled, Eli stood up to address the group. "Thank you all for coming. I know that sharing our experiences can be daunting, but together we can create a powerful voice. We're here to support one another and to stand against the discrimination that has affected so many of us." A woman named Kayla, who had worked with Eli at his former job, raised her hand. "I've been following your story, and I want to help. I face similar treatment, and I'm willing to speak out." Eli felt a wave of relief wash over him. "Thank you, Kayla. Your voice will make a difference. We need to show that this isn't just about one person. It's about a systemic issue." Another man, Marcus, chimed in. "I've been through something similar at a different company. I'd like to share my experience too. If we can unite our stories, it could be powerful." As the meeting progressed, more people shared their experiences. Eli felt a sense of empowerment in the room, knowing that they were all committed to fighting against the discrimination that had plagued their workplaces. The group discussed strategies for how they could collectively advocate for change and support one another. By the end of the meeting, Eli felt invigorated. They had formed a coalition of support, and he knew that together they could make a significant impact. As everyone began to leave, Kayla approached Eli. "We should consider doing a press conference to share our stories. It could help amplify our message." Eli thought for a moment, weighing the possibilities. "That could work, but we need to be prepared for the backlash. They're going to try to discredit us, and we need to have a solid plan in place." "I can help organize it," Kayla offered. "If we can get the media interested, it might help put pressure on the company." With renewed determination, Eli agreed to the idea. He felt a sense of urgency to act before his former employer could strike back. The next few days were a blur of planning and preparation. Eli and Kayla worked tirelessly to coordinate the press conference, reaching out to local media outlets and drafting statements to share with the public. As the date of the press conference approached, Eli couldn't shake the feeling of anxiety. He had come this far, but the thought of facing his former employer's retaliation weighed heavily on him. He knew they wouldn't take kindly to this public display of dissent. On the day of the press conference, Eli arrived early to ensure everything was in place. The event was held outside a local community center, where a small crowd had gathered, curious about the unfolding story. Eli felt a knot in his stomach as he saw cameras being set up and reporters milling about. Kayla stood beside him, her expression resolute. "You've got this, Eli. Just remember why you're doing this." Taking a deep breath, Eli stepped up to the podium as the crowd hushed. "Thank you all for being here today. My name is Eli Carter, and I'm here to share my story along with the stories of others who have faced discrimination in the workplace." As he spoke, Eli could feel the weight of the moment. He recounted his experiences, detailing the injustices he had faced at his former job. The crowd listened intently, and Eli could see empathy in their faces. He was no longer just a victim. He was a voice for change. After Eli finished speaking, Kayla took her turn at the podium, sharing her own experiences. One by one, others stepped up to share their stories, creating a powerful narrative of resilience and strength. The atmosphere was charged with emotion, and Eli felt a sense of unity among the group. However, just as the press conference was wrapping up, Eli noticed a commotion at the back of the crowd. A group of men and women wearing suits had arrived, clearly representing Eli's former employer. Eli's stomach sank as he recognized the faces of some of his former colleagues, people he had trusted who were now aligning themselves with the corporate machine. One of the men, a senior executive from Eli's old job, stepped forward with a microphone. "This is nothing more than a publicity stunt," he declared, his voice dripping with disdain. "These individuals are trying to smear our company's reputation for their own gain." Eli felt a surge of anger rise within him. "You're wrong. This isn't a stunt. This is about holding you accountable for your actions. It's about fighting against the culture of discrimination that exists in workplaces like yours." The crowd began to murmur, the tension escalating as the two sides faced off. Eli could see the unease in the eyes of the reporters and onlookers. They were witnessing a clash of ideals. "Let's not pretend that this is about anything other than a personal vendetta," the executive continued, his tone mocking. "You're just trying to play the victim while you seek attention. We have no tolerance for this nonsense." Eli stepped forward, his voice steady but fierce. "You can try to discredit us all you want, but the truth is out there. We have the evidence, and we're not going to be silenced. This is about justice." The crowd erupted in applause, the show of support invigorating Eli. He had come too far to back down now. This was not just his fight anymore. It was a movement against systemic injustice that needed to be heard. As the press conference concluded, Eli felt a mix of adrenaline and anxiety. He knew the battle was far from over, and the retaliation from his former employer would only intensify. But he was ready to face whatever came next. Together with his coalition, he would continue to fight for what was right. Eli Carter stood at the edge of the crowd, the adrenaline still pumping through his veins from the press conference. The confrontation with the executive from his former employer had only strengthened his resolve. However, he was acutely aware that the real battle was just beginning. The threats that had loomed over him now felt more tangible, more immediate. The company wasn't going to let this go without a fight. In the days that followed the press conference, Eli received a barrage of negative attention. Social media exploded with comments, some supporting him, but many aimed at discrediting not just his claims but his character. Anonymous accounts accused him of being a professional victim, of seeking fame and fortune at the expense of the company that had once employed him. Eli felt the weight of those words, each one like a barb aimed at his self-worth. He spent hours scrolling through the comments, trying to discern the motivations behind the vitriol. It was disheartening, but he reminded himself that for every negative comment, there were supporters who believed in him. He reached out to his coalition, Kayla, Marcus, and others, encouraging them to stand strong against the backlash. They needed to support one another, especially now. One evening, Eli gathered the group at his apartment to strategize their next steps. The small space felt cramped, but filled with energy. "We need to be proactive," Eli began, his voice steady despite the anxiety gnawing at him. "If the company is going to come after us, we need to be prepared." Kayla nodded, her expression serious. "We need to document everything. Any communication we receive, any threats, everything. It's important to have a record." Marcus chimed in. "We should also consider legal action against them for defamation if they continue to smear our names. It might show them that we're serious about this." Eli agreed, feeling the weight of necessity. "Exactly. We need to demonstrate that we won't be intimidated. If they think they can silence us, they're mistaken." As they discussed their plans, the doorbell rang. Eli excused himself to answer it, finding a delivery man holding a large envelope. "You've got a package of..." "Sir," he said, handing it over. Eli took the envelope, puzzled. It was unmarked, and the weight of it felt ominous. He brought it back to the group, and they gathered around as he opened it. Inside was a stack of papers, some printed emails, and a threatening letter. The letter read, We know who you are and what you're trying to do. If you continue to drag our company's name through the mud, you will regret it. We have the means to expose you and your friends. Consider this your final warning." The room fell silent as they processed the message. Eli's heart raced. "This is what we feared," he said, anger coursing through him. "They're trying to intimidate us into silence." Kayla's face was pale, but her voice was firm. "We can't let them scare us. If anything, this shows that we're on the right path. They're afraid of what we're capable of." Marcus leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "We need to take this seriously. I think we should report this to the police, and we should definitely inform Travis. He can advise us on the best course of action." Eli nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. "You're right. We need to document this and take it to a lawyer. We won't let them intimidate us." The group spent the next hour discussing their options, drafting a plan to report the threats to the authorities while also consulting with Travis. They knew they had to remain vigilant and united in their fight. The risks were high, but so were the stakes. The following day, Eli contacted Travis, relaying the details of the threats and the delivery of the letter. "This is serious, Eli," Travis said, his voice low and steady. "You need to take this to law enforcement. They need to be aware of the situation, especially if the company is resorting to intimidation tactics." "I plan to," Eli replied, feeling a sense of urgency. "I just want to make sure we have a solid case moving forward." "Good. And keep your coalition close. You're stronger together, and they might try to isolate you," Travis advised. "We'll need to strategize how to move forward with your case now that the company has shown its hand." Eli felt a sense of validation as he hung up the phone. He had taken steps to protect himself and his friends, but the looming threat of retaliation still hung in the air. He scheduled a meeting with the local police department to report the threats and to discuss how to protect himself and his coalition. When Eli arrived at the police station, he felt a knot in his stomach. The atmosphere was cold and clinical, the stark walls echoing the seriousness of the situation. He met with a detective, a tall man with a weary expression. "So you received a threatening letter?" the detective asked, flipping through the notes Eli handed him. "Yes," Eli said, his voice steady. "I believe it's connected to my case against my former employer. They've been trying to intimidate me since I went public with my story." The detective nodded, taking notes. "Have you documented any other incidents? Any threats or harassment?" Eli explained the social media backlash and the smear campaign against him, detailing the anonymous accounts that had sprung up. "It feels like they're doing everything they can to discredit me and scare me into silence." The detective listened intently, his expression serious. "We'll take this seriously. I recommend keeping a record of any further communications. And if you experience any harassment in person, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll do what we can to ensure your safety." As Eli left the station, he felt a mix of relief and anxiety. He had taken a step toward protecting himself, but he was acutely aware that the fight was far from over. He needed to remain vigilant, not just for himself, but for everyone who was standing up against discrimination. That evening, Eli gathered his coalition once again. They met in a community center room, the atmosphere charged with determination. Eli shared the details of his meeting with the police and the importance of staying united. "We're stronger together," he reiterated, looking each person in the eye. "If they think they can intimidate us, they're wrong. We have the power to fight back." As the meeting continued, Eli and his friends strategized their next steps. They discussed reaching out to local advocacy groups and exploring ways to amplify their message. The more support they could garner, the stronger their position would be against the threats they faced. "Let's consider organizing a larger event," Kayla suggested. "We could invite speakers, have people share their stories, and really shine a spotlight on the issues we're facing." Eli felt a surge of excitement at the idea. "That's a great idea. If we can draw attention to our cause and rally more support, it could create a movement." They spent the rest of the evening brainstorming ideas for the event, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Eli was determined to turn their fears into action, knowing that the fight for justice was a collective effort. Together, they would stand against the intimidation tactics of their former employer and continue to advocate for change. In the days that followed, Eli and his coalition worked tirelessly to plan the larger event they had discussed. They reached out to local advocacy groups, community leaders, and media outlets, spreading the word about their mission to expose the systemic discrimination they had faced. The response was overwhelming. People from all walks of life reached out, expressing their support and a desire to be a part of the movement. Eli felt a sense of empowerment as the event began to take shape, knowing that their voices would be amplified. As the date of the event approached, Eli and his team finalized the details. They secured a venue, lined up speakers, and coordinated with local organizations to provide resources and support. The energy in the group was palpable, a mix of excitement and apprehension. On the day of the event, Eli arrived early, his heart racing. The venue was already buzzing with activity as volunteers and attendees filtered in. He took a deep breath, surveying the scene. This was their moment to make a lasting impact. As the event commenced, Eli took the stage, his voice confident and unwavering. Thank you all for being here today. We're here to share our stories, to demand accountability, and to fight against the discrimination that has plagued our workplaces and our communities. The crowd erupted in applause, and Eli felt a surge of energy. One by one, members of the coalition stepped up to the microphone, recounting their experiences with courage and conviction. The stories were powerful, each one a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. As the event progressed, Eli couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They were no longer just individual voices. They had become a collective force, united in their quest for justice. The media coverage was extensive, and Eli knew that their message was reaching far beyond the walls of the venue. However, just as the event was winding down, Eli noticed a familiar face in the crowd. It was the same senior executive from his former employer who had confronted him at the previous press conference. Eli's heart raced as the man approached the stage, a microphone in hand. "Excuse me, everyone," the executive said, his voice carrying a hint of arrogance. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I feel the need to address the false claims being made here today." The crowd erupted in boos, but the executive raised a hand, silencing them. Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. These individuals are trying to paint our company as the villain, but the truth is, they're just looking for attention and personal gain. Eli stepped forward, his expression hardening. "That's not true, and you know it. We have evidence of the discrimination we've faced, and we're here to hold you accountable." The executive shook his head, a condescending smile on his face. "Evidence? All I see are a bunch of disgruntled former employees who couldn't cut it in the real world. You think you can just come in here and tarnish our reputation?" The crowd erupted in outrage, and Eli raised a hand, silencing them. "We're not going to be silenced. You can try to discredit us all you want, but the truth is out there. We have witnesses, we have documentation, and we have the support of this community." The executive scoffed, his expression darkening. "You think you can just rally a few people and make a difference? This is a waste of time. We have the resources to bury you in your so-called movement." Eli felt a surge of anger, but he refused to back down. "You can try, but you'll fail. We're not going away, and we're not going to stop until we see real change. This is about more than just us. It's about everyone who's been silenced and marginalized." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Eli felt a sense of empowerment. They had come too far to let this man's arrogance and prejudice derail their efforts. As the executive attempted to continue his tirade, Eli stepped forward, his voice commanding the attention of the room. "We're not here to engage in a war of words. We're here to demand accountability and to fight for justice. If you think you can intimidate us, you're sorely mistaken." The executive's expression shifted, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. Eli seized the moment, turning to the crowd. "We won't be silenced. We won't back down. We're going to keep fighting, and we're going to keep exposing the truth, no matter what they throw at us." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Eli felt a surge of pride. They had come together, united in their cause, and they were not going to let anyone stand in their way. As the event came to a close, Eli and his coalition gathered, their spirits high. They knew that the battle was far from over, but they were determined to keep pushing forward. Eli felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that their fight was about more than just his own experience. It was about creating a better future for everyone. In the days that followed, Eli and his team continued to work tirelessly, reaching out to local and national media outlets, organizing community events, and building a network of support. The backlash from his former employer continued, but Eli refused to be intimidated. One afternoon, as Eli was reviewing the latest updates, His phone rang. It was his father, Judge Carter, his voice serious. "Eli, I've been hearing some concerning things about your case. I think it's time we had a conversation." Eli felt a knot form in his stomach, but he knew he had to be honest with his father. "Dad, I'm doing everything I can to fight this. I won't back down no matter what they throw at me." Judge Carter was silent for a moment, and Eli could sense the weight of the situation. "I understand, son, but you need to be careful. These people are powerful, and they're not going to play fair." Eli took a deep breath, his resolve unwavering. "I know, Dad, but I'm not alone in this fight. I have a coalition of people who are standing with me, and we're not going to let them win." Judge Carter sighed, and Eli could hear the concern in his voice. "All right, Eli, I trust you, but please be careful. I don't want to see you get hurt." Eli nodded, even though his father couldn't see him. "I'll be careful, Dad, but I'm not going to stop fighting. This is about more than just me. It's about creating a better future for everyone." As Eli hung up the phone, he felt a renewed sense of determination. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he was ready to face whatever challenges came his way. With his coalition by his side, he was confident that they could make a real difference. The culmination of Eli Carter's fight for justice came on a crisp autumn morning. With the support of his coalition, they organized a large community rally outside the headquarters of his former employer. The event was designed not just to protest, but to celebrate the strength and resilience of those who had faced discrimination. Eli felt a mix of nerves and excitement as he took his place at the front, flanked by Kayla, Marcus, and other supporters. As the crowd gathered, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. Banners were held high, each one bearing messages of unity and hope. Eli's heart raced with anticipation as he stood before the microphone, ready to share his story once more. He looked out at the sea of faces, some familiar, others new, all united in their shared experience of injustice. "Thank you all for being here today," Eli began, his voice steady. "We stand together not just for ourselves, but for everyone who has faced discrimination and been silenced. Today, we reclaim our voices." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Eli felt the energy surging through him. One by one, speakers took the stage, sharing their stories of resilience. Each narrative echoed the same theme: a refusal to back down in the face of adversity. The event grew into something greater than Eli had ever imagined, a movement fueled by shared experiences and a collective determination to fight against systemic injustice. As the rally continued, Eli saw a familiar figure in the distance: Travis Hargrove. The lawyer stood at the edge of the crowd, observing the event with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Eli felt a flicker of doubt, but he pushed it aside. No matter how powerful Travis was, Eli knew they were on the right path. After the speeches concluded, Eli stepped away from the podium, feeling a sense of accomplishment. The media coverage had been overwhelming, and the community's support was palpable. However, he also knew that the battle was far from over. His former employer would not back down easily, and he needed to be prepared for the consequences of their newfound visibility. That evening, after the rally, Eli gathered his coalition for a meeting. They discussed the next steps, buoyed by the success of the event but aware of the potential backlash. "We need to remain vigilant," Eli said, his voice steady. "They might try to retaliate, but we can't let that scare us." Kayla nodded, her expression serious. "We've come too far to turn back now. We need to keep pushing for change and support those who have faced similar experiences." The group agreed to continue raising awareness and advocating for policies that would protect employees from discrimination. They reached out to local lawmakers, urging them to consider stronger anti-discrimination legislation. With each passing day, Eli felt empowered, knowing that they were making a real difference. Weeks later, Eli received an unexpected call from Travis. "Eli, I've been thinking about your case," Travis said, his tone more respectful than before. "I want to help you take this further. I know the company is watching closely, and I believe we can build a solid case against them." Eli was taken aback but felt a glimmer of hope. "You're willing to help?" "Yeah, I see the strength in what you are trying to do. It's about more than just one person. It's about changing the culture in workplaces everywhere." "I want to be a part of that," Travis replied. With Travis's support, Eli felt more confident than ever. They began to prepare for a potential legal battle, gathering evidence and testimonies from others who had faced similar treatment. The coalition continued to grow, and with it, the momentum of their movement. As Eli stood on the brink of a new chapter in his life, he realized that his journey was far from over. He had transformed from a victim of discrimination into a fierce advocate for change. With his coalition by his side, they were ready to take on the challenges ahead. In the weeks that followed, Eli's case gained traction. The support from the community and the media kept the pressure on his former employer. As the battle unfolded, Eli felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination. He was no longer just fighting for his own rights. He was fighting for everyone who had been silenced. As the final chapter of this tumultuous journey unfolded, Eli looked forward with hope. He knew that change was possible, and that together, they could make a difference. You've made it to the end. If you enjoyed this story, I am confident that you'll love the next one appearing on the screen now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and please give this video a like. I'll see you in the next one.